I'd always been a skeptic, a person who trusted in logic over legends, until that night in room 306 at the Crestwood Hotel. I was traveling for work, exhausted after a long day, and hoped nothing more than a quiet night's sleep. The room itself was ordinary, almost too plain, but something about it felt off as soon as I stepped inside. The first night, I noticed little things that set my nerves on edge. At midnight, I awoke to a faint rustling sound coming from the closet. I chalked it up to old pipes or perhaps a loose shutter outside, yet when I checked, everything seemed undisturbed. I tried to dismiss it, attributing the noise to my overactive imagination fueled by jet lag. As the hours passed, a peculiar sensation gnawed at me, a feeling that I wasn't alone. I began to notice shadows that lingered too long in the corners, as if they were watching my every move. One evening, while unpacking my bag, I caught a glimpse of a figure in the mirror. I spun around, heart pounding, but found nothing. The unsettling sensation only grew stronger. I learned later that room 306 had a dark history. A guest had vanished under mysterious circumstances years ago. No one could say exactly what happened, and the hotel management always offered a vague explanation. The rumor was that the room harbored a malevolent presence that ensnared those who stayed there. I laughed it off at first, insisting that superstitions had no place in a modern world. But as the nights grew longer, the evidence became impossible to ignore. On my third night, the atmosphere in the room turned oppressive. I sat on the edge of the bed, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. The air grew heavy, and a cold draft swept through the room, carrying whispers that I couldn't quite decipher. I tried to rationalize it, the building's old wiring perhaps, or a draft from a window left ajar. But deep down, I knew there was something else at play. At around 2 a.m., I was jolted awake by the sound of the door creaking open. I lay frozen, straining to see through the darkness. The door slowly inched open, revealing a sliver of light from the corridor. A tall, shadowy figure stood there, its presence impossible to miss. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. In that moment, terror seized me as I realized that my logical mind was no match for what I was witnessing. The figure lingered at the threshold for what felt like an eternity before vanishing into the night. I remained in bed, heart pounding, until the first rays of dawn broke through the window. When I finally mustered the courage to investigate, the door was closed and nothing appeared amiss, except for a chill that refused to leave. I checked out that morning in a daze, leaving behind all my belongings and a lingering sense of dread. Even now, whenever I close my eyes, I can still see that figure standing silently in the dark hallway. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the mind, but the memory of that cold draft and the echo of whispered voices haunt me still. That night lingered in my mind like an unwelcome visitor, etching every detail into my memory with relentless precision. I recalled the subtle creak of the floorboards, the inexplicable chill that slithered along my skin, and the oppressive silence that followed the mysterious footsteps. Every sensory memory now serves as a haunting reminder that some mysteries defy explanation and leave me questioning the nature of reality itself. I don't know what truly happened in room 306, or whether the hotel's dark past was more than mere rumor. What I do know is that I've learned never to dismiss the inexplicable. Some places, it seems, hold on to their secrets, and those secrets can cling to you long after you think you've left them behind. Ever since I was a child, I believed my home was ordinary. A modest, two-story house with a few nondescript rooms and no sign of anything unusual. But everything changed when I started hearing footsteps above my room every night. I was only 13 then, and the mysterious sounds left me trembling in my sleep. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of my imagination. My family insisted there was no attic in our house, no secret space where someone could hide. It's just your mind playing tricks on you, my mother would say with a gentle smile, brushing off my frightened whispers. But night after night, the sound persisted. Soft, deliberate steps pacing back and forth, right above my bedroom ceiling. The sound was distinct, heavy, and methodical, as if someone were carefully walking a hallway lined with dusty, creaking floorboards. I tried to convince myself that it was the house settling or perhaps the wind. Yet each evening, as darkness fell and silence blanketed the house, the unmistakable sound of footsteps began. I would lie there, heart pounding, straining to catch any other noises that might explain it. The sound was always accompanied by a subtle, inexplicable chill that crept along my skin, raising goosebumps on my arms and neck. I started to dread bedtime, fearful of the unknown visitor who seemed to roam unseen above me. One particularly stormy night, the sounds were louder than ever before. The pattering of rain against the windows was drowned out by the relentless, measured steps in the space above. I gathered every ounce of courage and decided to wake my older brother, insisting that we investigate together. He too had heard the strange noises on occasion, but dismissed them as mere figments of our overactive imaginations. Reluctantly, he followed me to my room. We sat in the darkness, listening, until the footsteps abruptly halted. An eerie silence filled the room for a few moments before the sound resumed with renewed intensity, as if whoever or whatever was up there had noticed our intrusion. Fear surged through me, paralyzing every thought of rationality. The following morning, I searched the house for any evidence of an attic or hidden space. I scoured the crevices in the ceiling, examined every closet and crawl space, yet found nothing. My family's reassurances that our home was ordinary rang hollow in the wake of that night's terror. My brother insisted that perhaps it was a prank or the remnants of an old memory, but deep inside I knew something was terribly amiss. Even now, years later, I sometimes wake in the middle of the night, certain I hear those steps again, deliberate, measured, and haunting. I've tried to dismiss it as nostalgia or a trick of the mind, but the fear remains. I never discovered what caused those footsteps, and my family still insists there's nothing above my room. The mystery endures, leaving me with an unshakable sense that something inexplicable lurks just beyond the realm of the ordinary. I sometimes wonder if the footsteps will ever truly cease, or if they're simply waiting for the moment when I'm alone, vulnerable, and ready to confront whatever shadows may dwell above me. Even though I have tried to move on, the memories remain vivid. Sometimes, as I lie in bed listening to the quiet hum of the house, I question whether the footsteps were ever real or merely echoes of my own terror. The unanswered questions haunt me, a constant reminder that some mysteries never truly vanish. I was 15 when it happened. It was a chilly autumn evening, and I was home alone after my parents went out for a late dinner. They always warned me never to answer the door after dark, no matter what I heard, insisting it was for my safety. I never understood their insistence until that night. As the clock struck 10, I settled in the living room with my headphones, trying to relax and finish some homework. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling wood. Just as I was beginning to lose myself in the routine sounds of a lonely night, I heard a soft, deliberate knock at the front door. At first, I thought it might be the wind, or perhaps a delivery I wasn't expecting. But the knock came again, measured and persistent. I felt my heart race as I froze. My mind raced back to my parents' stern warning. I peered through the peephole, but the dark street offered no clue, only the murkiness of a quiet suburban neighborhood. The knocking resumed, this time louder, as if the visitor was growing impatient. Each knock sent a jolt of terror through me, making my skin prickle with dread. I tried to convince myself it was a mistake, a neighbor maybe. But the sound of the knock was accompanied by a low, almost inaudible whisper that I couldn't decipher. The knock persisted, echoing in the silent house, its rhythm both hypnotic and terrifying. I retreated to the safety of my room, heart pounding, and told myself I must stay hidden and ignore it. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and I listened as the knocking gradually slowed, then stopped entirely. A heavy silence filled the air, only to be shattered by a sudden, insistent pounding that rattled the door. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I pressed my back against the wall, refusing to move. In that frozen moment, I realized that the knocking was not coming from outside at all. It seemed to be coming from somewhere closer. I never discovered who or what was there that night. The door remained closed, and the knocking eventually faded into an eerie stillness. Even now, years later, I can recall every moment of that chilling ordeal. I still wonder what would have happened had I answered the door. The memory haunts me, a silent reminder that some warnings are meant to be heeded. That night, as I lay in bed long after the disturbances had faded, every creak of the house seemed amplified, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching me. I still shudder at the memory.